in order to land in. Yeah. Maybe grabbing yourself a drink, feeling into the body and being like, sensation wise, I might need a little more, so I might go to another space. Yeah, just really give yourself what you need. Feel free to say hello. Tell me where you are in the world today. But no pressure to do so. Okay, amazing. So we're going to begin. Last time, lots of people joined us as we move through. So as people come and people land in the space, we'll go from there and welcome people in as they come. So my name is Naomi Gale. I work with the pelvis on a holistic level. So I work with a whole range of tools. And one of my favorite things to talk about, along with lots of other favorite things with the pelvis, is to come in with this kind of visioning, manifesting space, but through the womb. I believe that and I've listened to a lot of manifesting books now and read a lot of manifesting books, and I just don't feel like enough people are talking about working with the pelvis, working with the cycles as women and those who identify as and those who bleed, just really acknowledging that they need and we need a little bit more than what's being shared when it comes to manifesting, basically. So we're going to land in through a grounding cord first and foremost. And what you might hear in this space are some anatomical terms. I use anatomical terms versus yoni. I use vulva, vagina, labia, cervix, womb. I use ovary sometimes, fallopian tube. So just be aware that that language will come in. And the reason why I share that is because sometimes people can find that a little bit overwhelming and can find that quite abrasive, especially if you're not somebody who uses the anatomical term generally. So just to be aware of that, and if ever you need any support, just reach out. The messages are on here, so you can always message me. So we're gonna just land in gently, so sitting really comfortably or lying down, whatever feels really, really good. Maybe just coming into that like cross-legged position, legs out, noticing what your knees need at this time. Yeah, and just really landing in gently into the space and noticing everything in the space. So looking around you, scanning the space and being in the area, and just really noticing what's in front of you, what's behind you, what's above you, and just looking around for as long as you need, orienting in the space until you feel ready to come with eyes to a close to connect in with this grounding cord today. Yeah, and I'm right here with you, really just allowing for that time to come where you feel that you are ready to close the eyes, but also notice that if you don't ever feel ready to close your eyes, you don't need to. Just allow yourself to do what you feel safe enough to do. Yeah. Noticing the shoulders, the jaw, which is directly connected to the pelvis. Taking in lovely breaths in through the nose. Bringing a hand onto the body if that feels welcome, maybe like a hand on the heart, a hand on the womb or on the belly. The womb lies 2 inches above the pubic bone, so it's a little lower down, where you could place a hand to bring in support, or you could place a hand on the belly. Breathing in. And welcoming any exhales out of the mouth, if that feels good. maybe 2 or 3 rounds of exhales out of the mouth. Yeah. And as you inhale into the womb, beginning to imagine a light, a golden light, white light, golden thread, pink light, whatever feels good, connecting in with that space. And sometimes this can feel really challenging if you don't often connect into the womb. Also, you can connect in if there is not a physical womb, then we can connect in with the hara, the energetic center here. So just breathing into that space. And then allowing for this thread or light to begin to move down through to the base, to the bottom of the uterus here, towards the cervix. Down through the cervix, down through the vagina, past the labia, into the earth below. Inhaling deeply into this energetic space, the hara, the womb, connecting with the light, the golden thread, or whatever it may be in your mind's eye, and allowing it to flow down, out, through, past the cervix, down and out through the vagina, past the labia, rooting you in, grounding you into the earth below. Breathing into that core deeply in. And now as you inhale in through that grounding cord into Mother Earth, inhale in the love and support and energy and reminder of the cycle that we're in with Mother Earth, inhaling that into the body, into the womb. And as you exhale, move down and out through anything that no longer serves. Maybe it's the day of something that's come up, or a feeling, a sensation. So inhaling the support of Mother Earth, and exhaling out anything that's no longer needed. Noticing the shoulders, the jaw, as you find yourself surrendering into that connection to Mother Earth. Breathing in through the heart space, down into the womb, down and out through the pelvis and into the earth below. Reminding you of your cyclical nature, that you are part of Mother Earth, and she is part of you. Father Sky above and Mother Earth below. Here you remain in your liminal space. And right here in your liminal space and this talk, this workshop today, nowhere else to be, just here for a moment. And we're going to remain with this grounding cord for the rest of this chat today. So just allow for that grounding cord to be, and then making your way back out into this space together. So maybe you begin to make movements with the body, moving the neck, moving the head, adjusting the body as you need, finding your way back into this space. No rush at all. Yeah. And I'd love to hear in the comment box if there was anything that came up, if there was a feeling, a sensation, a emotion, or just generally something that you'd like to share that came up for you, or whether you've done that before or never done that before. I really love to advocate for grounding in through the grounding cord, and specifically down and out through the vagina, because it's often a space that we don't talk about, and yet it's the portal to the uterus. So much goes on within the vagina, and yet we don't talk about it. So it's really important that we remind ourselves of that space and we ground in through that space. And last week's live was on, oh, you're so welcome, Victoria. So last week the space was about coming into our winter and honouring our winter. And we had like 200 meditators here, and it was really lovely. And then this week I was like, I'm gonna go down the route of my usual discussion of discussing the pelvis in this way. And there's 20 of us here today, which is a real gift. But of course, it's really interesting the language that we use and the way we describe and how we open up this discussion and where we open this discussion. Because last week, obviously, I talked about the pelvis because I talk about it all the time. But it's the way that the way that I introduce it. So I'm really celebrating all of you here today and talking about the womb and really planting those seeds today. So we're gonna just go through a little short chat around what it means to manifest and manifest as cyclical souls. So it's a really important thing I found when it comes to opening up the discussion around manifesting in our lives, because we often, especially when we start on this like spiritual path or we go into healing in any way, we often end up talking about like this manifesting space, right? It's like, well, if we're connected to source and we're connected to the divine and we're connected to the will of the world and the way that things are supposed to unfold, then we're really aware of what it means to manifest and almost come into the spaces that we want to be in for ourselves, almost as if we are really aware that there is a path for us to walk, and we have to open our hearts and minds to it in order to expand into life. And it may be that we're manifesting really small things to really big things. It may be that we're manifesting a new home, a relationship, friendship, a baby, material things, a work situation, a bigger salary. Who isn't? So it's always like, how are we really working with what's in front of us, and opening up to the smallest signs that we're on the right path. That's essentially what it is, right? And when we're trying to manifest for ourselves, there's two challenges that I really find myself, well, there was real challenges that I find for myself that I come up against when it comes to manifesting. And I realized that it was because and this was a couple of years ago, I realized that we really can't talk about the menstrual cycle and manifesting and healing in general if we're not really aware of how we're feeling day to day with our nervous system. And we can't talk about the nervous system and how we're feeling in our nervous system without acknowledging that we have a menstrual cycle and that we're cyclical beings. Now, if you don't have a menstrual cycle because, for example, you're on contraceptives, or for example, you no longer have cycles because you're in your perimenopause or menopause that are regular, or they're no longer here, then we can align with the moon. So when we talk about cycles, then we can align with the moon. So we're aligning with the full moon and the new moon, the waning and the waxing moon, and kind of what that brings for us as cyclical beings, right? So what we have to acknowledge is that we need to be in a regulated space to be able to work out what it is that we want for our lives, right? So if we, for example, are really annoyed, I'm give like a concrete example of how this might look. So if we're feeling really annoyed at work, or work is just generally not a vibe anymore, and we're really struggling with the workload, or maybe we run our own business and our business isn't working for us anymore. When we're in that space, right, what often happens is that we can make decisions from a dysregulated space, right? So we're like, well, what I want almost to manifest is more pay, or a job that gives a shit about my well-being, or a job that pays more, or my business not being as challenging as it is to find new marketing clients, right? So then we're like, well, I'm gonna sit with that, and I'm gonna manifest my £2,000 a month. I don't like to go into big numbers because I find it really annoying. The other day I was watching a video and they were like, someone was really struggling at £11,000 a month, or $11,000 a month, and I was like, okay, it's all relative. So I like to just think about how when we're in that space, we're like manifesting certain things. We're manifesting certain managers, we're manifesting a certain amount of money, we're manifesting a certain situation and vibe from a different space, right? So we then are trying to manifest this, thinking that this is what we need, from a space of dysregulation often. Because what often happens is we get to this like wall, and then we're like, well, now I need this. And what we don't often do is sit with a regulated space to acknowledge what we actually need. Because if it's like, yeah, I do need £5,000 or $5,000 a month, or 5,000 euros a month, or whatever currency you're on. If I need that, and that's genuinely what I need, because I've listed down like how I like my life to live from a regulated space, and I can see that this amount of money would give me the freedom to do that, and etc., the snowball effect of that, that's very different to, I need to manifest a new job, and then what you actually do is you move job and you realize that job wasn't it either. And that was definitely me. I was somebody who would be like, right, well, this I used to be a primary teacher, school teacher, so I used to be like, right, well, I'm going to move to a different school. That will solve my issue. And then after a while, I realized that it wasn't the school that was the issue. It was the fact I didn't want to be a teacher anymore. So I wasn't able to do that until I had a baby, and I was forced to sit down and breastfeed him for hours upon end because he loved the boob, and we would just sit there like pinned to the sofa with nothing else to do. And I was sitting, and I realized that I was unraveling and unfolding and regulating, and just like together, me with my baby regulating. And then I sat there for that full 12 months of maternity leave that we are in some ways very gifted with in the UK, because I realized that is not the case in America, for example. But also to be sitting there and being like, what is it that I actually want? What is it that I actually need for my body, for my soul, for my nervous system, right? That's when we can start to tune into the fact that we need to have regulation before we manifest. So that's that chat. Then we have to acknowledge that we're cyclical beings, and we're on a cyclical situation of 28, 29, 30 days, whatever it might be. And when we're in some of our seasons, it can be more challenging to acknowledge what we want to manifest. So for example, if you're in your autumn and you're feeling like PMS vibes, there's shadows, there's darkness, there's frustration, there's grief, we cannot manifest from that space. We cannot work out what we truly deeply need from that space, because we're not regulated. We're struggling with all of the progesterone pulling us into our body. Progesterone's pulling us in and down, so that we can just simply be. And it's not the time and place to be making any big changes, or even thinking about big changes, right? So that's the vibe that we're going with, and that's the chat that we're going with. It's like, okay, So often when we read manifesting books, it's almost like you make those changes and you do those changes and you implement those changes and you keep sowing those seeds and you keep going and you keep almost like a hustle mode, almost like the hustle of what needs to be. If we stripped it back and realized that we live in a cycle, not just our inner cycle, but the outer cycle of life, then we realize that manifesting is a much more gentle unfolding and unfurling. If we think about the rose, and I always like to think of us as feminine souls as the rose buds, as the rose blooms, and as the rose wilts and dies away, and then the petals compost in the earth, and then the plant feels nourished, and then we nourish the plant from the roots up, and then now the roses lie dormant until they're ready to begin to grow the buds and bloom again. That's how I see manifesting in general. We're in our winter, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, we're in our winter here. We're not necessarily going to be manifesting and changing, making big changes, but we can sow the seeds in the darkness, in the velvety darkness of the womb, while acknowledging what our needs are in this cycle. And a really good example of this is if somebody's looking to change career. I come back to career because it's just like an easy plain, we all know where we stand when we're chatting about it, even if you're not in this like general career space. So when you want to move jobs, and say you got to January, you had your Christmas, life was wonderful, and you went back to work in January and you're like, what is life? Why am I doing this to myself? And then you end up thinking, okay, well, I want to move jobs now. I want to make it happen now. I want to move jobs now. I want an interview now. I want to be in my new role by the middle of February. You know, that's the kind of vibe that I definitely get from when I'm reading like manifesting books. But actually what we want is to acknowledge that things that we kind of plant now, and this is a really important thing, because of the life cycle, it's really interesting actually, because I heard somebody say this not actually that long ago. It was like everything, it was kind of like a business marketing person, and she was like, everything that you do now changes things in like 3 months time, right? It's like this, what you're doing now, work-wise, whatever it is, will make waves in 3 months time. So I was watching this video, this reel of them, and they were saying they were saying if you want to be in a different space in 2024, then you have to start making waves now. And that was like November time, even end of October time, right? But what's really interesting for me, as someone that works with the pelvic health work, is that 3 months is the time to make changes with the body, with our pelvis, and with our cyclical health. Because it takes 3 months, as the life is almost it's more of the science here, but it's like how long it takes to make an impact and a change to, for example, sperm and an egg if you were looking to conceive. So if somebody was to go into to see a fertility doctor and they were like, do this to your lifestyle, make this change to your lifestyle, drink less, don't take the drugs anymore, whatever it might be, take less dairy, whatever their advice is, right? That change will come in 3 months time. Not now, I'm going to stop drinking now and I'm going to have top quality sperm. That doesn't happen. It takes 3 months, right? So if we're thinking about the whole things take 3 months, well, actually, why are we not talking about the fact that that's linked to our cycles, our menstrual cycles, our seasons, our outward seasons of Mother Earth, right? Because, you know, she starts to go into the depths of winter, that solstice time. So we're in the depths of winter in like December, January, February in the Northern Hemisphere. It's only in March when things start to feel a bit easier. And then we're in March, April, May, and we're very much in the spring, right? And then we go into June and we're like, oh, there's the summer, and so on and so on and so forth. 3 months. And when we think about 3 months and we think about cyclical nature of life, then we realize how much longer it actually takes for us to acknowledge what we need. And that's great, because then We can come at it from a cyclical, gentle, nervous system-led approach, right? So here's how I would advise your manifesting chat when it comes to being cyclical and when it comes to having Hara, an energetic center, and aware that we birth things and we gestate and we have birthing time and we get to sit with ourselves and nourish our bodies and regulate ourselves, and then at some point we birth. And it's often that we disregard the womb as a space of birthing for ideas, creativity, and what we want. Because what we often do in society is go, a womb is just for making a baby. And then it becomes totally not a chat. We don't need to chat about it anymore, right? And then there are people going, okay, well, I don't ever want a baby. So what about my womb? And we completely ignore the fact that there are people who don't ever want to have a baby, but they have a womb, and then they become angry almost at being in the feminine and being feminine for having to bleed every single month for however many years. But actually, that's because we're ignoring that the womb is there to birth many, 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 many other things, and also to birth and be with a cycle every single month. So if we're talking about manifesting and being with this cycle in general with our monthly cycle, then we can think about how we can plant the seeds in the velvety darkness of our womb space in our winter. This is when we can vision. Let me explain why. Our hormones are at our lowest in our winter, right? So everything is like so much more clear. It's a little bit like when we get to our menopause and the veil drops and we're like, and I can't wait for it. It's exciting, where we just give less shits, where we're like, I don't care as much, and the veil drops, we're in this space and we're like, whatever. And this allows us so much more clarity when we don't have the rising estrogen that's coming up, and the ovulation and the rising progesterone and the dropping of estrogen and all of these things going on within the body, right? That we disregard in society as like not big events. Big events, guys, every single month. So we end up on our period bleeding and really entering and giving to the earth, right? We're bleeding into the earth. We're letting go, we're shedding, and we have clarity on everything that's around us. It's why we have less to give during our period as well, right? So we plant the seeds, we create the vision boards, we sit with what we want, we find the perfect picture of our life in the summer, we fill our baskets on this ultimate favorite website with everything that we want to buy this year. We, without checking out yet, we write it down. We get our journal and we write at length, writing what we want. What was it that we want? What do we want to be making? What does our work look like? What does our family look like? What does our relationships look like? Friendships look like? You know, whatever's really prominent for you. We're sowing the seeds in the velvety darkness of the womb space while clearing and cleansing from the previous cycle. The seeds are planted in the womb like the eggs that are growing within our ovaries. We begin to grow them, and then we end up growing and moving and growing and allowing for them to gestate and become stronger, and we sit with them, and we might come back to our morning pages every morning and go, but what does my life genuinely look like? A really good question is, what do I desire? What do I desire every single day? What do I desire? And at the moment I'm going through the story of Thecla, which is in the New Testament, and I've always stepped away from the church quite massively, and then I've come back into what being in the church looks like through the feminine, and why the feminine has been eradicated from the church in this patriarchal world that we're in for all these years, right? And there's the story of Thecla who sits and she faces the window, and this is what I'm really in every single day. I sit with this. I'm like, Thecla does not turn from the window. She sits facing forward to the words of Paul, and she does not turn her head to not face the window. Despite all of the chatter behind her, despite her mother, despite this suitor that's coming, she does not turn from the window. She sits looking out the window, and she's adamant that this is what she wants. She's adamant. She doesn't waver, she doesn't change. She sits looking at the window for 3 days. So every day I'm coming to my journal and I'm like, what am I looking to? What am I looking for? What do I desire? And the key within the Thecla passage is, what am I worthy of? Like, what am I truly, deeply worthy of? I am worthy, and this is what I want for myself, and this is what I desire. So you planted those seeds in the womb, in your menstruation space, and every single day you come back to those seeds and you tend to them like the gardener that you are. You tend to them like you're tending to the earth. And you come out and you nourish yourself in Mother Earth. You get into the earth, plant some other seeds, some literal seeds in Mother Earth, some bulbs in Mother Earth, and remind yourself of that nature and the magic of life. So if we continue to do that, and we allow for then the grieving in our autumn time, with that like what people call the PMSy time, the shadow time, when the progesterone's pulling you back into the body, and we allow ourselves to grieve the Naomi before, the person before, those who can't see what your vision is, those who have had to move away from your life because they're not going to be part of the journey forward. We have to allow ourselves to grieve that person and allow ourselves to grieve what was, in order to step into the space and expand into the space that we want. And then again, we come back into bleeding and we're planting those seeds and we're tending to those seeds, more seeds we planted. And then we tend them in the spring and we grow them on in the summer. And sometimes we end up at a space where we remind ourselves of everything that we've been planting and working on and reminding ourselves of for maybe those 3 months or maybe longer, maybe years. And suddenly we birth it and we go, oh my gosh, look at how far I've come. Look at where I've come. This is exactly what I imagined for myself. And so while we're doing that, we're allowing ourselves to tend to our nervous system on a cyclical basis. So we're aware of what it is that we need in order to sit with ourselves in grief. Is it breath? Is it just ceremony and ritual? Is it more space and time? Is it more meditation? Is it more support from maybe a support like counselor or a friend? Like, how do we regulate ourselves and acknowledge that we need to be in a regulated, real parasympathetic space in order to make any big decisions? So that would be my general manifesting within alignment chat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to publish on here. So every week I do a live. I'm going to remind myself of I'm going to bring in a visualization or a meditation that's linked to it. So last week we talked about being in our winter, which is really useful when we're talking about manifesting and acknowledging that darkness. That means that we can't always just be like doing and being and creating. And I've really created a really gorgeous visualization that's going to be uploaded to here. It's uploaded to here today, so it will come within the next 5 days as Insight Timer check it through. And then I will then be recording next week a manifesting visualization. So it allows you to come into your womb, plant those seeds, and really sit with what it is that you need in a regulated space. And I'm going to upload that visualization meditation next week. So everything that I've talked about today hopefully will be put into a little lovely meditation to sit with, and you can remind yourself of that. So we have a really gorgeous 45 minutes. We have gorgeous 10 minutes left, and this is what I want to do. I would love to teach you about somatic hands. You may have heard of somatic hands before, or you may have never heard of somatic hands, and celebrating either one. Great time to sit with the somatic hands if you know what you're doing. Great time to talk about somatic hands. So we're going to regulate ourselves together, and we're going to plant a seed in our womb and move it down through the grounding cord. So there are some things that you might need, and there's no rush to get these at all. And also, if anyone has any questions in the meantime, please place them in the box. So we're going to need a place to lean back to cue the body to relax. So it may be that you are sitting on a sofa, a chair, in your bed, whatever. But we're going to remain upright, so you might want cushions behind you. You just want to be really comfy. Second thing that you're going to need is an object for your hand. Now, I am next to a load of crystals. You do not need a crystal. It could be anything at all. It could be an orange. It could be something that's in your pocket, or it could be a crystal that's near you. The smaller the item, the more challenging this is. So don't worry if it's small, but if it is small, just know that it might feel more challenging. And then as long as it can be just in your hand, so not too big, basically. And then what you need is a cushion that could be placed on your lap. So I haven't got a good example right in here, but I've got my meditation cushion, and that would be on my lap, and I would have my hands on my lap. So let me just move it down. So you'd be like this, and then the object will be in your hand, and you'll be leaning back. That is the vibe that you're going for, if you can be in that position. Otherwise, feel free just to be in the audio of this space. And you're going to be placing this object, the orange or whatever it is, in your most dominant hand. So if you're ambidextrous, then just choose your most dominant or the one you want to use. But right hand, left hand, whichever hand you're writing with, placing that object there. And I'll be doing this right here with you. Yeah, just cueing down. And when you lean back, just really notice yourself as supported. Yeah. And if it feels good to bring eyes to a close, then feel free to do that. And there's a couple of people that just joined, so just as a little reminder for everybody, we're leaning back in the space that we're in. We're placing a cushion over our lap, and we're placing some kind of object in our more dominant hand and resting that on the cushion. Yeah. And if it feels good to bring the eyes to a close, please do so. Noticing the breath and allowing the words from the session to move away. The somatic hands can be done for as long as you want. It's a really lovely, easy way of coming into the body. So we're going to do it for a short moment, but you may want to do it for longer at another point. Beginning to turn the object around in your hands. Really beginning to feel all the edges. Noticing the sensations, the temperature, or the feeling of it. The edges of it, and turning it around in your hand. Breathing in through the nose, out of the mouth, if that feels good, and moving into the space. Yeah, just moving it around in the hands. Seeing if the eyes can come to a close, just for these final moments. Keep turning it. Yeah, I'm doing this right here with you. I'm right here with you. And the first invitation is to slow this turning, this movement down by 50%. Slowing the movement in the hand by 50%. Continuing to explore it at that speed. Remembering the breath. Keep exploring at that speed. And then the second invitation in this space is to slow it down again by another 50%. Slowing it down again, that movement in the hand by another 50%. Breathing in and down. Noticing any emotions or feelings that arise with that cueing of slowing it down by 50%. Noticing the breath, the unraveling in the space. And then allowing yourself to come to a pause with the item in the hand. And coming back to the grounding cord that we started at the beginning of this session today. Connecting in with the cord in the womb, the light, the thread. Noticing a seed that you would like to plant in the velvety depths of your womb space. Breathing into that seed of intention. Breathing in the love and support of Mother Earth through that cord, from the earth, in, through, past the labia, through, past the cervix, and into the womb where the seed lies. And as you exhale, exhale down the intention of that seed, any feelings, visions, into the earth, into Mother Earth, for her to carry this for you. And slowly beginning to make movements with the body, allowing that grounding cord to fade in its own time. Knowing that that's there at any point, whenever you need. Placing the object down next to you or allowing it in the hand for a moment longer. And as you come back into the space, welcoming in the comment box any seeds that were planted or anything that came up during that time. Or remaining in the silence that you might be in and feeling that inward energy from that space. Yeah, amazing work. So just to round up, that practice was called somatic hands, and you can Google somatic hands. There might even be someone on Insight Timer that shares somatic hands. If not, I'll get on that so that we can share that. So really the support moving forward is to remind yourself to acknowledge that you're a cyclical soul, to plant the seeds in the velvety depths of the womb, especially when you're bleeding in your winter space, to then allow yourself to gestate and be with that seed planting and tend to it for as long as you need from a regulated space. And then really allowing yourself to come into the body with the acknowledgement that you are a cyclical soul before making any big decisions around like work or anything else, and knowing that eventually you'll look back and be in awe of how far you have come. So I'm really celebrating you all for being here, and really just engaging in this space today. And as I promised, I will upload a meditation visualization for manifesting through the womb space onto my profile on Insight Timer, so that you can come back to it and listen again. And if anyone would like to leave any session tips, then please do so. I'll be super, super grateful. I just really appreciate being on Insight Timer around here versus the usual social media where they don't like me using the word vagina. So thank you all so much for allowing me a platform to use the anatomical terms that we should all be using. Gloria, thank you, Naomi. Interesting how the sensations were massive on the non-dominant hand, left hand. Oh, that is really interesting. So you're saying, Gloria, you were feeling like sensations, less on the hand or something you held, but more on the other one. Really interesting. And then I would be coming, Gloria, to the chat of the masculine, the feminine. Because when we're in that, what often happens is the dominant hand is linked to the masculine part of the brain, right? The doing brain, the busy brain, and that's what we're essentially slowing down. So then when we're having maybe sensations in the non-dominant hand, in the feminine hand, what does that mean, Gloria? So that would be something to like kind of journal with, kind of what might be coming up. I always remember when I first did, tell me, I can't give you the answer, Gloria. You know, that isn't something I could do, but I can definitely allow you to sit with the feminine and the masculine. You can go away and you can look up like the feminine and the masculine energies in life in general and what can come up with that. But also for yourself, Gloria, give yourself time to kind of like journal with being in the masculine versus being in the feminine and what that might come up for you. That's definitely something that I would sit with. I always remember doing somatic hands for the first time with a coach, and when she told me to slow it down by 50% the first time, I was like, what? And then when she said to slow it down by the second time, I was like, I'm done. I'm out. I was just like, what is life if we have to slow it down this much? So it's just really interesting, Gloria, for you to sit with and notice. And Louina, thank you so much for being here. Really, really grateful for you being here. And Carmen, thank you so much for being here. And I'm sending love, Gloria, with that exploration. Thank you, Victoria. Oh, so good that you had time to leave your body, Victoria, for the rest of the day. Thank you so, so much. Sending love all.